things just got interesting as the odds-on favorite to win the Royal Rumble has been announced. We're going to break down the top storylines coming out of the Royal Rumble coming up on this episode of Wrestle Digest. But before we get into it, we got to say that 91% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up on everything wrestling related, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. But Darius, we got a lot to break down today, so we got to jump right into it. I mean, the odds-on favorite for the Royal Rumble has been announced by Sky Bet, and they have John Cena being the favorite to win the Royal Rumble, with Roman Reigns being a close second runner-up. But I mean, this isn't really a surprise to a lot of people, because a lot of people say, no, it's the farewell tour. John Cena is most likely going to win the Royal Rumble and main event WrestleMania. It's the last time we're going to see John Cena in a WrestleMania match, so it only makes sense. But if we just take a look at why people are so excited about this, is because everybody wants to see Cena versus Gunther. I mean, that is the main reason that a lot of WWE fans are tuned back in for this John Cena farewell tour, is they kind of see the torch passed between John Cena and Gunther. And Darius, looking at this, I mean, seeing Cena as the odds-on favorite, can you see this storyline playing out here?
Absolutely. And I think this is exactly what everyone wants. Nobody wants to see Cena versus Cody Rhodes, for example, because Rhodes is not dropping the title before WrestleMania. We know that. So that's not the storyline to go down. And John Cena, he's come back in recent years and wrestled at WrestleManias, right? He faced Austin Theory for the US title, and he does matches like that and loses, puts guys over, and that's all great. But John Cena is retiring this year. This is his farewell WrestleMania. He's not coming back for a farewell tour to not be in the main event scene of WrestleMania. He has to be in the main event scene. He did that whole promo on the first Raw on Netflix saying, I'm going to come back and I'm just going to be this good guy. I want to put on some good matches. I'm not going to be in the main event scene, and obviously got the crowd into it, announced that he was going to be in the Royal Rumble. It makes sense. Like, I don't know. There's one other guy, and we'll get to it, that I think could win the Royal Rumble, and it's not Roman Reigns. And otherwise, it's John Cena. It should be John Cena, I think, actually. And we'll get into that later in the video as well, that it should be John Cena, because he should take on this match. It should be Cena Gunther at WrestleMania. Pass the torch in a way where he faces Gunther, gives him the rub a little bit. But I do think Cena should take the title, and whoever Cena faces later in the year, whether it be SummerSlam, he can continue to give back to the business while becoming the GOAT, the 17-time champion, and giving back to the business by dropping the belt to somebody else or back to Gunther. Maybe they could do a trilogy of matches this year, do something fun with Cena, obviously on his farewell tour. There is also, a possibility that he doesn't win the Royal Rumble. Maybe he faces Randy Orton at WrestleMania, right? That could be something fun as well. So there's a lot of possibilities, but I think it would actually be best for John Cena to win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I mean, logically, John Cena is the pick here. I mean, he's coming back for the nostalgia tour here for all the young WWE fans who watched him growing up, like ourselves. So I think it may, like I said, the logical answer is John Cena wins the Royal Rumble. But we all know Paul Triple H Levesque loves to throw some stuff around here to shock everybody, and I wouldn't be surprised if John Cena doesn't win the Royal Rumble. Maybe we see a surprise entrant win it or something like that. I think that's what, it's the Netflix era, as Paul Levesque coined it on the debut of Raw on Netflix. So I could definitely see a big surprise coming. But if we're going down the logical route, John Cena makes the most sense. But talking about the odds-on runner-up here in Roman Reigns, I mean, Darius, when I kind of seen this, I was like, I can't really see a storyline coming out of Roman Reigns winning the Royal Rumble besides, Roman versus Cody, maybe versus The Rock at WrestleMania, like that triple threat that we all thought we were going to get last year. I mean, seeing Roman Reigns win the Royal Rumble just doesn't really make sense to me.
No, it doesn't make sense. And again, I can understand why he'd be the second favorite here. It makes a lot of sense if you go down the list, but it doesn't make sense for him to win the Royal Rumble because you're not going to put him up against Gunther. Storyline makes no sense. Nobody wants to see Roman and Cody for the third time. I think that's been exhausted. The storyline on top of it doesn't make sense anymore, right? I don't think you can go down that route. I think the only opponent, if he is going to wrestle on the road to WrestleMania, is The Rock for Roman Reigns. Let's finally visit that story and have that going. There's a lot of weird stuff going on with The Rock right now. We can get into him as well. He was acting a little bit weird on the first Raw of on Netflix, and obviously the next night on NXT, he was saying, Yeah, I was acting a little weird, but let me take you along for the ride. So I'm sure he has something up his sleeve. And I think that, it's finally time. Roman doesn't have the title. It's time to visit that storyline. I do want to see that match now. I didn't want to see it last year. We knew what the story was. It was Roman and Cody. And finally, Cody was going to get his moment. So this year, I think it's finally Roman Reigns versus The Rock. I think they should go down that route. And something that's underrated in all of this, the third guy that I think that nobody's really talking about that could win the Royal Rumble is CM Punk, right? He's finally come back. He didn't have his moment last year. I feel like they were building towards something where he was going to face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. But this year, I think it would be best if John Cena wins the Royal Rumble. He's, given that opportunity again. It's a feel-good story in that way. Everyone who grew up watching him gets to see him go for 17 titles. I want to see a desperate CM Punk. He wants that main event finally. He's never had it. I want to see him in the Elimination Chamber with Drew McIntyre, with Seth Rollins. I want to see a desperate CM Punk storyline. So I think it just makes sense if you go John Cena wins the Royal Rumble, CM Punk wins the Elimination Chamber, and then obviously Roman Reigns faces The Rock. I don't know how you feel about that, Casey. I think that's the way you go with it. I think that's kind of what the fans want to see as well. And not only, what the fans want to see, I think it's just going to make for great storylines.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it is the year for Roman versus The Rock. There's no doubt about it. Ever since last WrestleMania, The Rock has been acting weird inside the WWE ring. I mean, at the Raw after Mania, even going back that far, we've seen The Rock kind of come out, give Cody his flowers, saying, hey, I'm not going anywhere, gives him this weird object in his hand, and nobody to this day still knows what it is. So, it is, he has been weird. So, I can see either one or two things going. Either it's Roman versus The Rock, or it's Cody versus The Rock. They are the two things, but if you do Cody versus The Rock, then what do you have for Roman? I think it is the year for Roman versus The Rock. I think you can have a million things happen for Cody, and I think Cody versus maybe CM Punk, like you mentioned, after winning the Elimination Chamber, could be really cool as well. But we got to talk about the other entrants here that have been named so far. We have LA Knight, CM Punk, like you mentioned, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, and the one that sticks out to me here the most, Darius, is Drew McIntyre. I think after this year for Drew McIntyre, he's been screwed over in his home country in Scotland. He's been screwed over at last year's WrestleMania. He's been screwed over by CM Punk so many times you can't even count it on two hands at this point. So, it makes sense for that storyline for Drew McIntyre to be like, it's not going my way. He wins the Royal Rumble. It finally goes his way. He challenges for the World Heavyweight Championship to get that back, maybe from Gunther at this point, and I think it would make sense. Maybe it doesn't make sense if Gunther is the champion. I think you'd have to have him drop the title before Mania, which I can't really see happening for that storyline to happen. But on this list, besides Punk, I think Drew McIntyre is the one that sticks out to me.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins to me might be dark horses in this whole thing. Obviously, the top three we just mentioned are the pretty obvious choice. You just don't know exactly who's going to win at this point, but I think they're the dark horses. And I'll admit it, I was never really a big fan of Drew McIntyre, but the last 2 years, he has really changed my mind. Like, I find him very intriguing. He's a great character. What he's doing, his work, everything, the storyline with CM Punk, what he's doing with Seth Rollins, and not just them two, everything he's doing, any program that he's put into the last 2 or 3 years, I'm a big fan of Drew McIntyre now. I think it's must-see TV, appointment viewing. So he's done a great job, and I think that he could be a dark horse as well. Because like you mentioned, he's been dragged through the mud the last 2 years. He really has in WWE. So for the betterment of storylines, right? I have to give him credit where credit is due. He's put a lot of guys over in that way. So I love that for Drew McIntyre. So maybe this is his moment as well. I think he could be a dark horse. I think there's going to be some weird stuff going on. I'm not sure if they hand it to John Cena outright. I think that could be the move. But they could do some interesting stuff here with Drew McIntyre, maybe in the Elimination Chamber. I think things are going to get weird, especially after the Royal Rumble. In the Elimination Chamber, you're going to put a bunch of guys that do not like each other, in kayfabe, of course, into the Elimination Chamber fighting for one main event spot. So it's going to be really interesting to see who ends up winning the Royal Rumble. But again, I think that Drew McIntyre is a dark horse, could be maybe a fourth option there to win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt about it. And there's one guy here on this list that you're probably screaming at the screen right now saying, why haven't you talked about The Rock? Because we're talking about him right now. A lot of people have speculated that The Rock will enter at number 30 or 31 or whatever it is for the Royal Rumble and just completely shock everybody. I think that is definitely something that could happen. That will probably happen because that would just be, it would shock a lot of people in the arena, but a lot of the people who read deeply into it like us would come like, okay, we see this coming, you know what I mean? But it would make sense for The Rock to come out, win the Royal Rumble after, you know, kind of brushing away the Cody past, the last time he was on TV, shaking his hand, showing his respect, to kind of come out as the final boss at the Royal Rumble, win it, get on the mic, and just diss Mama Rhodes into the dirt, and then they both come on and just have this crazy storyline going into WrestleMania. We've seen it last year, where he, you know, was beating him up in the parking lot and whipping him with his belt and all this kind of stuff. I mean, Darius, this just makes too much sense for me to see The Rock versus Cody at Mania.
It's another storyline that makes sense. Again, I think I want to see Roman and Rock this year because I feel like that window could be closing. We could have had it the last 2 years. Maybe we revisit it this year, but I feel like this storyline is hot too. The Rock, you know, the last year has been saying Cody Rhodes is not the guy to take the company on his back. So I think it could be very interesting come the ending of the Royal Rumble, because I wouldn't say I'm expecting The Rock to be in it now, but I feel like he's going to make an appearance. And I feel like, you know, the final four could get very interesting. It could be The Rock, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and John Cena. Maybe The Rock crosses, you know, Roman Reigns. He screws him over in the end, right? And throws him over the top rope. And then we get a little bit of a storyline that way. And then the final two are CM Punk, John Cena, something like that. Could be very interesting, but I feel like they're leaving the door open right now. I think they're trying to, you know, figure out exactly what they want to do, because this would be something that makes a lot of money. I would still be interested in this if it wasn't Rock and Roman. This is a great storyline because it, you know, they had some real, it seemed like at least heat with each other on screen after the Raw after WrestleMania. So I thought that was fun, and they haven't revisited, like you mentioned, you know, that story from that night. So I think it could be another option as well, or maybe they lead into Rock Roman. Maybe they have something else planned for Roman. You know, Solo Sikoa just returned as well to SmackDown last week, so there is still a story I think there too. So could get very interesting. I can't remember a time where WWE had this many slam dunk opportunities going into a WrestleMania, where there were so many possibilities. Like last year was a great build-up, a great WrestleMania, and they had a lot of possibilities as well. But this year, the possibilities are endless. There's so many guys in the mix, so many main eventers, so it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, welcome to the Paul Levesque era. I mean, we're seeing storyline after storyline, and even now with the women's mid-card title, we're going to see some crazy storylines in the women's, Royal Rumble as well. I think this is the best time to be a wrestling fan. If you're into the dramatic storylines, we have it all right now in WWE, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see which one unfolds here at the Royal Rumble. Want to hear your guys' thoughts? Who do you have winning the Royal Rumble? Let us know down below in the comment section if you enjoyed this one. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. But as always, I've been your host, KC, alongside my co-host, Darius. We'll catch you in the next one.